Good evening. My name is Laura Thompson, and this is Community Artist Connection. This evening, I have the great pleasure of having one of my friends, Jaime Lyerly, and she is an artist, and we're going to explore the wonderful world of encaustic. So, hi, Jaime. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. So, how long would you say that you've been an artist?
I started painting when I was 21. I had done some drawing beforehand, but basically I came into painting at the age of 21 with doing intuitive painting, basically just laying down color and moving it around. So I'd say I've been an artist then, yeah, since I was 21. So
you're not going to tell us how old you are?
Oh, I'm 33. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm 33.
Okay. And right now you're in school, right?
Yes. I'm at San Diego State University. I'm a sculpture major with a minor in psychology.
Oh, wow.
So.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
One side and then the other.
Mm-hmm. Well, they really tied together well in general, especially with the idea of using art for healing purposes.
Oh, yeah. True. Very true. We are really, really lucky. I really love your encaustic work. In fact, you inspired me to really get into it. So you want to tell me and tell the audience a little bit about what encaustic is?
Mm-hmm. Encaustic is hot beeswax painting. It's actually beeswax, damar resin, and pigment. It's actually an ancient technique that was basically they used it in the Greeks. Actually sealed the ships using encaustic. They used beeswax and just to seal the ships, and then they started adding pigment to it and decorating the ships, and they used the sun to fuse it. Encaustic actually means to burn in. So that's how the word encaustic comes. So basically, it's a beeswax, and they also did paintings in the ancient Egyptians used encaustic for the sarcophagi.
So basically, it's on mummies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's mummies, really cool. And there's some portraits that are called the Fayum portraits, and those are actually like over 2,000 years old, and they still look brand new. They still look like as fresh as these ones that are only a few months old. So it has a really long staying property. But the contemporary encaustic came up through the main person for contemporary encaustic is Jasper Johns. So a lot of his paintings. Especially the ones that are done, the ones that are the three flags that people are really familiar with, that's actually encaustic. So he's like the contemporary encaustic master. So when people think of encaustic now, they think of Jasper Johns and his work.
And what about it got you into it?
Actually, I started off encaustic using beeswax. I put beeswax on sculpture. I was doing body casts and casting my own body and just having the female body. And instead of actually painting on the cast, I decided to cover it with wax, and just got to having. I started off with paraffin wax, and it was nice, but it kind of was really brittle. And so I started with the beeswax, and I just loved the smell of it and putting it on there. And so I was just pouring it on there and painting it onto the body cast. And then I realized that if you actually add pigment to that, it becomes encaustic. And so I started learning about it from the painting aspect of it. So a lot of people start off with, say, with painting or oil painting, and then move on to encaustic, and then move toward the sculptural realm. But I actually came from sculpture and moved back to painting, and then now back to sculpture again. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's, one of the things that I find really fascinating, actually the thing that I like about it is, like you mentioned, the scent of the wax. It really is really a neat thing, and unless you have experienced it yourself, you don't understand that part of it. And it's for me, it's a very forgiving media. Like if I don't like it, I can just scrape it off when it dries and hardens. A lot of other things, like with sculpture, I do clay sculpture, so once it hardens, that's it. But with this, I can go back and I can change it. Of course, you know, when you're doing acrylics, you can always just paint over. But this is even better because you don't, you know, you can just use the same thing. You don't have to get rid of the whole thing and cover the whole thing. So I really think it's really cool. I noticed that you brought some goodies in the very front. What's in there?
Well, this, I can bring this up here. It's actually, it's a small sculpture I did with as a collaborative project with one of my friends. Her name is Sunshine Vekis, and she actually, we had it where we both switched materials. She brought in a piece that she you know, liked but wasn't quite sure what to do with it, and so and then I gave her a piece of mine and that I liked but I wasn't sure what to do with it, and so we actually, it had originally started off as like a long, almost like a belt of these particular things, and then I took and dipped them all into wax and then embroidered on them, and then I gave them back to her and she tried some other things to them and then she gave them back to me, and now they're in this kind of contained little mess, or contained little box here, because you take, I say mess, but it's the idea that you take and do lots and lots of work on your art, and then, you know, and you do lots of work, and then you can and then you kind of, you know, put it all together, and you have to restrain it and put it into this little box, and so I think that this kind of symbolizes a lot of you know, what kind of the work I do with a little bit of women's issues and things like that, that you're kind of in this box and you're stuck, but there's, you know, it's little pretty things and there's other parts of it, but you're restrained in this little box here, so.
But it is okay to break out of that box, isn't it?
Yeah, you can open it up. It's not locked. Yeah, there's no, but it's just part of what, you know, some of the issues, the kind of the underlying, like I like to start off with my art and actually just, I do a lot of process art where I just work from, with what, you know, just starting off with deciding to work with one particular thing, and then the concept kind of builds off to there. Sometimes the concept comes first, but a lot of times it just is working a lot with the material, and then figuring out how does that work. Like, what if you take something and it's usually just spread out and then you shove it all into a little tiny box? You know, how does that change how it feels, you know, or how does it change if it's if something was little and tiny and you put it in a gigantic thing? So I like to play a lot with my materials. So.
Yeah, sounds like it. One of the things that I do is I like to do a lot of opposites. Like if I'm working with something that is angular, I'm going to put spheres with it, you know, and that sort of thing. And it's kind of like I'm hearing the same sort of thing, you know, like it's either you can spread it all the way out or you can contain it, same sort of thing, the opposite.
Well, I do like the juxtaposition of two different things, like with, you know, hard and soft and light and heavy, and I do mix those together. But I think sometimes if you make them too obvious, you know, it doesn't really have as much of a connection, and also the being able to put something in between the two, the transition between the two of them is really important, and so being able to find these things that fit together, and having those transitions is really important to me. But I do like that, and kind of the thing that I always joke around about is the fact that I usually take something that's really beautiful and I'm like, well, how can I wreck this? How can I tear it apart? How can I, you know, what can I do with this thing? Or, you know, what can I do to it to take